All right, welcome back in Mill Sports here. We're going to be breaking down some of the local sports here in the Arizona scene. We have a pretty big college matchup to break down with ASU going to Michigan State this week. We want to recap last week's Cards game and preview next week's Cardinal football game. But first, let's just dive right into the Diamondback situation. It is Thursday, September 12th. They have lost 4 games in a row after winning 10 of 11.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it safe to call them dead?
I would say so. I would say September 12th is the day that I think as an Arizona D-backs fan, you can call it over. That's not to say they aren't a great team and they haven't had a great year. Especially coming into...
Well, they're not a great team, and they haven't had a great year. They've been 500
Hold
all
on,
year.
let me finish. For what they were expected of this year.
Okay, fair enough.
Also, and I hate to be a broken record here, coming as an Arizona sports fan, but if you would have told me no Corbin, no Greinke, no Goldie, no Corbin, a list of injuries, some of them taking our guys out for the
Pollock's
entire
now
year.
on the Dodgers.
And we finished above 500 and potentially have the ability to finish better than last year. Yeah, I would still.
I don't even remember our record.
Not to be the
from last
optimistic Oscar over here, but I would call it a good year.
No,
for the
it was for
D-backs.
sure a successful season.
Yeah.
Especially after the trade deadline moves and losing Greinke, the most valuable pitcher. We could have sent Ray. We didn't. We kept him. It is what it is. We were a 500 baseball team that got a little bit hot for 2 weeks. Made it interesting. We're now 3 games back of the Brewers and I believe 3 games back of the Cubs as well. They're both tied for the final wild card spot. The only thing I'll say is there's 15 games left for the Diamondbacks. They're 3 games out. 12 of the 15 are at home against competition that they, theoretically are superior than.
Yeah.
All right, there's no more Dodger games. The only tough matchup they have left is St. Louis. I think they play 6 against the Dodgers in that as well. Or 6 against the Padres, I apologize. So, are they out of it? Probably. But crazier things have happened in MLB.
The one thing I'll say about it that's frustrating is them just tying us in, going into probably one of the toughest parts of their schedule and going on a winning streak. And then just blowing it all right at the end with 1 series.
Yeah, I was checked out. I checked out before the All-Star break. I mean, I didn't really get into D-back season at all. I wasn't expecting very much. It's a rebuilding year. And then all of a sudden they win 10 of 11 or 11 of 12, whatever it was. They got me hooked. I was starting to check my phone every day.
The Dodgers, all right, of all teams too.
What's happening here? And boom, per usual, they let us down. There's always next year, Diamondbacks. But honestly, this is the best case scenario for me because we got a ton of assets for Greinke. I think we started the most rookie starts in MLB history. Over a third of our starts have been by rookie pitchers.
Young.
So they're, hopefully trending towards a youth movement, infusing a little bit more younger talent, more long-term talent. Ketel Marte exploded onto the scene this year. That was exciting because if he can produce like that on a regular basis and play 3 premium positions at a high defensive clip, he's a very good player. And we locked him up to a 7-year, $35 million deal in the offseason. So he will be a Diamondback for
quite a while.
The foreseeable future.
The one thing I will say on that, I guess final note, is there is a ton of optimism going into next year.
Oh, yeah.
Based off of where we were supposed to be, where we are, and kind of just the hat tricks that Hazen has pulled this year.
That's the most exciting part.
We are in a position we never would have
Let's
thought
touch
we
on
could
that
be
real quick because recently the Boston Red Sox have fired their GM. And Hazen came from the Red Sox organization. He was there for, I believe, 11 years, including all of their World Series, except for 04 maybe. But 11 years essentially. I'm very worried that Hazen might be the GM of the Red Sox come next spring.
It's definitely something you have to, worry about. I mean, it's a possibility. The one thing I will say is I think Boston has enough respect, especially for Hazen and the organization he's with, to where I don't think they're going to talk until the season's over.
That's the thing. They won't. I don't think anything will come about for a while.
But that being said, now it's the D-backs' job to use that time of him not talking to Boston to say, or convince him to say, it's not even worth it. I'm good here. Whether that be money, whether that be more power, whether that be...
I do think that they have him locked up longer than everybody knows. I'm pretty sure that he has 2 years, next year and the year after, guaranteed left on his deal because he's in year 3 of a 5-year deal. But I also think that they have given him extensions each of the last 2 years. So I think we have him under control for potentially 3 or 4 more years. I'm not entirely certain about that, but I mean, I do think that nothing will happen for the rest of this season, and everything will happen in the offseason. But it's a fear of mine because Hazen is potentially the best GM the Diamondbacks have ever had.
No, he is. He has already proven in his tenure here in Arizona that he is. He's made a ton with basically nothing.
Yes. And their unpopular moves, trading away Greinke, trading away Goldie, the franchise icon.
All worked out very well so far.
And everybody, most rational Diamondbacks fans will look back and be like, those were solid trades.
Yeah.
But moving forward, we probably won't talk much more Diamondbacks unless something crazy happens, fingers crossed. But let's dive into Arizona State football, who is 2-0. Herm Edwards has them 2-0, heading into Michigan State to face the number 18 ranked Spartans in a premier college football matchup on Fox this weekend. ASU's offense does not look good. Like, let's just come out, get the elephant in the room, call it like it is. Their offense has been terrible. I don't know what to make of it.
The problem is, and it's the elephant in the room, but it's the offensive line. That's kind of where all problems are sourcing from. And
not a freshman quarterback? Not a true freshman quarterback?
Especially given a small amount of time that he's had to throw. Some of the games and some of the drives he's had, he looks like Josh Rosen last year out there where he's scrambling for his life. And he's even made some nice plays to buy himself even more time in the backfield when being pursued to make throws down the field. Has he looked like a freshman at points? Yeah, absolutely. He definitely has looked like a 7 or 18-year-old or however old he is right now. But that being said, I do not think Jaden is the issue on this offense. I think it's the offensive line. And why I say that is look at Benjamin. He's struggled as well. And I think that's because he's getting blown up in the backfield every other play.
I'm not necessarily going to put it all on the offensive line because Benjamin has not looked good. Daniels is a freshman. I always say McDaniels. I don't know why. Jaden Daniels is a freshman. And more so than anything for me is Herm isn't the type of coach that necessarily wants to get up and down the field. He doesn't want to run 90 plays like Todd Graham did. He doesn't want to hit all these other metrics. He's going to grind you down, play defense, and make a play in the fourth quarter to win the game. That's all he is about. He is about winning. He is not about putting up stats, yards, points, none of that. He's about, at the end of the game, do you have one more point than your opponent?
Yep.
And his best way of doing that is by playing defense, punting when they need to in field position, not really going for it, sticking to the run game, even though, it probably doesn't behoove them because Kent State I know for sure loaded the box many times and we still ran into it. Maybe it's a little bit of factor of not trusting Daniels all the way quite yet, but eventually you got to unleash him. And I think this is the game that they kind of unleash him in a sense. I don't think ASU is going to win this game. It's going to be very tough, but I think in the long term this is going to be better because Daniels is going to learn a lot about how to play football, how to play college football, how to win tough games. And I honestly think that with a 14-point spread that they're going to cover that spread. They're going to lose by less than 2 touchdowns.
I would agree. I think it's just tough. You're going into Michigan. Is it a day game? Do we know, or is it a night game?
It is a 1 p.m. local time, so 3 p.m. Michigan State time.
This time isn't too bad. However, you're going into Michigan State, who's pissed off about last year and how it went down and how they lost. So they have a chip on her shoulder. And just after that Sacramento State game, it's concerning.
Yeah, 19 points against Sacramento State is unacceptable, no matter which way you slice it, no matter how you want to play the game of football.
Yeah, and I think it's just a bummer schedule structure-wise, because I honestly think if Michigan State was week 4, and I know it doesn't work out that way because those are non-conference games, I think we would have a legit shot at winning. However, I just think after last week's performance, we look like we're still kind of slugging. And if you're slugging into this game, you're going to lose.
I do think they're going to lose. I do think they're going to surprise people about how well they play. I see this as like a 24-17 type of game. You know,
that would be impressive.
It's going to be a grinded out game because Michigan State's offense is not good. All right, Arizona State does have a pretty good defense.
The one promising thing so far.
And although they might be young at some positions because they played a lot of true freshmen last year, they're still pretty decent.
And they're deep.
And Lewerke has looked terrible in the first game. The only reason they won the game at all, period, even by the amount of points that they did, was because of defense. I remember watching them, and they had 2 different times they blocked a punt inside and got it inside the red zone. And I believe that they had 2 other picks that were returned onto the opponent's half of the field. So they had short field all day, and they just kept settling for field goals, similarly to how ASU played against Sacramento State. They had 5 drives inside the red zone. 4 of them were field goals. You know, if you punch 3 of those in, now all of a sudden you have 33 points against Sacramento State, and you look a lot better. So I think, you know, there's going to be, of course, learning curve going with this football team, but I do think that they're going to surprise some people, grind it out, keep it close, and I wouldn't be shocked if they had a chance to kind of win it at the end of the game.
Yeah, upset
but I don't think they will.
And that's fair. I mean, completely. I think if that is the mindset, you only hope that they almost use that as motivation to keep improving if they do come out and have a good game despite coming up short, and not go into this pattern of, okay, well, now you got a few tough Pac-12 games coming up and you start dropping those, and before you know it, you're 2-2, 2-3, and your season's looking really ugly. So win or lose, really what I want to see, like you said, is them come out and have a good game, and then just try to keep that going into the next 2 to 3 games, to try to get some conference wins and turn the season into something and not allow it to deteriorate.
I do think that they are going to. I do think that they're going to make a little bit of noise in the Pac-12. I think the best way to do that, honestly, is probably by losing this game and coming in hungry the first few weeks. Get off to a hot start. Maybe start 2-0 in the Pac-12. Now you're back to 4-1. And now I'm not saying they're going to have 10 wins, but could they get to 8, 8-5? Sure. That's kind of what I'm projecting this team as, is a team that can win against pretty much anyone except for maybe Oregon and Washington in the Pac-12. Maybe Washington State, because they're not going to slow it down. But they're going to put up a fight against some of those teams, like you said. And it's tough. It's tough right now to see them because they had more promise than this. And I do think that it's kind of a slow start. My only hope is that D'Antoni and Michigan State is kind of overlooking ASU. Like, oh, man, they can't score. 19 points against Sacramento State, we're going to blow the doors off these kids. Because if they have that mindset, they're losing. All right, if Michigan State comes out and overlooks ASU will beat them. That's what happened last year in Tempe. They didn't give them the respect, but with that loss, I do think that they're going to come in focused.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose to us 2 years in a row.
No, I don't think that's going to be the reason why they lose. If they lose, it's just, I think it's whose defense steps up more, because I think the defense could result in points for either side in this game. And even if not, it's ultimately who's going to slip up and let the offense score that 1 or 2 times.
Exactly.
Because it could be a low-scoring game, potentially, just the way it's been looking for both teams and their narrative so far. It could be a defensive battle. So it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. But, yeah, I just think that it's going to be close.
However, minus 14, that's man, they really do not expect a lot out of ASU.
Vegas does not like ASU. Rightfully so, they never do. They never like ASU. They didn't like them last year. They were a 12.5-point favorite last year, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And we beat them. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you still got to play the game. These are college kids. Michigan State, ultimately probably has 5 NFL guys, maybe 10 at most.
Yep.
So 80% of their team is not going to go to the NFL. Just like 80% of ASU's is not going to go to the NFL either. These are just, normal college kids who are good at football and can get a free education. With that being said, I already gave you my score prediction. I think it's Michigan State 24, ASU 17. So I think that they cover. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think that Michigan State ends up pulling it out in the end. What are your thoughts on the game?
I would go similar. I would just keep it at a 21-14.
21-14, even lower scoring. See, yeah. So, if you're getting anything, we expect this game to go on the under. I don't know exactly what the line's at right now, but if you can get it anywhere around 50, if it's above 50, take the under, because I don't think that both teams are going to light it up on the scoreboard. Now, let's get into what everyone wants to hear. All right, let's get into our Kyler Murray talk. Let's get into our Cardinal football talk. Right off the top, Kyler Murray, Cliff, game 1 at home against the Lions. I thought Kyler looked terrible for the first half. It looked like he was going to kind of right the ship in the third, but it was still bad.
Yep.
And then fourth quarter, here we come. Oh, I figured it out. All right, let me see if he can replicate this in game 2. I think Kyler looked good. I think Cliff improved. What did you think about them?
Oh, man, you want to talk about highs and lows, an emotional roller coaster. You went from just down in the dumps within a few minutes to this is the guy. He's the one. It was really scary at first seeing that, but you could visibly see Murray was nervous, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. You could just see that you knew he was kind of on the big stage and a little deer in the headlights at first. However, whatever happened in the locker room and whatever he worked through in the third quarter, something clicked for him, and all of a sudden he was in NFL mode. And I think the same goes just for Cliff as well.
Yeah, I think it's even more so for Cliff.
Yeah, he kind of was a little over his head is what he was thinking. He was probably like, oh, what did I get myself into? Because I remember seeing
early in the first quarter a formation where it was 3-by-2. You had 3 guys on the right
David
split out,
Johnson
2 guys on the left split
behind.
out. And it was just it was trying to get a little bit too cute. Instead of doing plays that he knows will work, like one of the biggest plays, which, he still added his wrinkle to it, but it's a wide receiver screen, just simple. And you had David Johnson, Fitzgerald, and Damiere Byrd on one side of the football. If the Lions are probably thinking that ball is going to Fitz or David Johnson, nope, went to Damiere Byrd. Fitz and David Johnson blocked. I think it picked up 14 yards and a first down. It was just these small things where he's adding his twist to plays that work. Don't get too creative. The NFL typically, it is what it is at this point. They've tried a lot of different variations of playing football. Don't get too unique in your play calling. Be a little bit more aggressive, like you were in the fourth. Don't necessarily just try to get it out quick. Run plays that can beat the other team's defense. That's the key for me, I guess.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, if you want to look at it kind of a play calling standpoint and stat standpoint, is he actually did not really run the air raid a lot in that first half. Like you said, he was getting really cute with a lot of the plays he was doing. And in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, he really got to his 10 personnel air raid offense. And I believe they ran it, I think they were in 10 personnel 24
of
the 25 blast plays.
I don't know if it was necessarily 10 personnel or if it was 4 wide because...
10 personnel, you have 1 running back.
Okay, but ends, 4 pass catches because I remember a lot of the plays were I remember seeing a play in 12 personnel, but everybody was split out. So you had 2 tight ends on one side.
No, but that's the thing. That's the funniest part is that is 10 personnel, but instead you have tight ends.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
So blockers on the outside, something we've not really seen.
Yeah, and then I remember Max Williams caught a 17-yard pass on one of them. He's supposed to be the blocking tight end. And, if you just put him in unique positions, you make the defense think, you make the defense say, who am I guarding on this side? Who am I guarding on that side? Do I have the right alignment? Boom. Oh, wait, I got to go. Play's gone.
Well, you look at the Christian Kirk 2-point conversion. That was Williams, the tight end, on the outside like a receiver.
Running a pick.
Yeah. Which worked perfectly. And I believe they ran a very similar play with Larry Fitzgerald.
And those pick plays
to the right
are not new. Those pick plays are not
fundamentals.
Everybody in the NFL runs a pick play, at least one. The pick plays are something that work extremely well, even though for the most part they are illegal. But neither here nor there. If everyone's doing it, then just let it go. I think the biggest thing about this game, though, the offense was terrible in the first half. It was very bad in the third quarter, and then it was good in the fourth. I wouldn't say it was spectacular. I wouldn't say it was like they made a bunch of big plays because they were having to make these plays in order to stay alive. It was back against the wall type of plays.
Do or die.
Fitzgerald on the boundary, just lighting it up. He caught the ball for like 35 yards or whatever, got up, just fist pumped,
got the crowd on their feet.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was boom, we got a little bit of life.
And
I think if you keep that consistency where it's just good to above average,
somewhere in there,
average to above average,
you could win some games.
You could pull some games out. But I think the biggest thing is the defense.
Absolutely.
And not even necessarily our defense, but what the Lions chose to do against our defense. We played an 8-man box a ton in the game. In fact, the two highest percentage of running backs that ran into an 8-man box this weekend. Number 1 was Kerryon Johnson, and number 2 was C.J. Anderson. Both on the Lions. That is out of the entire NFL. They were running backs number 1 and number 2 in attempts into an 8-man box. I understand that you have the lead and you're trying to grind it out, use the clock, but the Cardinals are committing to the run. You have Galladay, you have Amendola, you have Marvin Jones, and you have Matthew Stafford, and you're choosing not to attack a rookie corner and Tremaine Brock, who is, by all accounts, an average NFL corner at best. You're choosing not to attack the weakness in the Cardinals because you want to burn clock. That's just poor coaching. Matt Patricia is an absolute freaking idiot.
And that's the funniest part is, I'll tell you what, that's the funniest part is he's not even a rookie coach. You got a rookie coach against a second-year coach and coaching staff, and they are ultimately, in my opinion, the one who lost the game. Specifically the play when it was a crucial third down, and the offensive coordinator called a timeout right before Matthew Stafford hyped the ball to where a running back was wide open and at least would have got the first down, but it looked like it might have been a touchdown, which ultimately ended up in that was on second down, and it ultimately ended up in a failed third down, punting back to us, and if you watch the game, the rest is history.
Yeah, because I remember looking in the third quarter about 10 minutes through the third quarter, so 5 minutes left.
It's looking bleak still.
The win probability for the Lions was at 98% on ESPN's app. 98%.
Wow.
They gave Arizona close to a 0% chance of pulling out that game. And they didn't pull it out, to be fair, but they tied. They didn't lose it, all right? And for them to come back when they had, were a 98 chances out of, so if you took 100 chances on the ball game, 98% of the time the Cardinals would have lost that game. They were in the 2% where they either tied or won it, all right? And that's pretty impressive. And that's, as much as I want to be that's a credit to the defense for keeping it close, that's just poor coaching by the Lions. The Cardinals should have lost this game. There's no two ways around.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I really like about that, though, is that K1 and Cliff took advantage of that opportunity. The defense took advantage of the opportunity. They realized the Lions got them back in the game, and that's, I guess, the most exciting part is that team can muster that together in one quarter and then almost win it in overtime.
Yeah, I remember
first game playing with each other.
I remember seeing a clip on Twitter that was right after the game. Kyler Murray had, he had just basically realized that he was going to tie, and he was pissed, and he was so upset, and he was jumping up and down, and Cliff came over and was like, dude, that's how you fight. We'll be better next week. You'll play better. I'll call a better game.
He took full responsibility too.
Yes, 1,000%. I know that's going to happen with these guys. They're going to figure out how to play with each other. They're going to figure out how to call a game that complements their players that they have currently. And if Cliff can do that, then I do think that he's going to be a very successful head coach. Head coaches that don't last typically are so rooted in their system. It's their way or the highway for the most part. And not everyone can do that like Bill Belichick can. And even Bill Belichick, he coaches his players and he puts his players in unique positions. And he knows who he has. He knows his personnel. And that's why he's so successful. And I do think Cliff, if he's going to do that as a rookie head coach and kind of learn some of these things and actually be able to adapt his coaching style, I do think that he's going to be pretty successful going forward.
And I think that he will, based off of everything you just said, because he is kind of a forward-thinking coach. He, like you said, went to Lincoln Riley and asked, how can this work in the NFL? How did it work with Murray? He's always looking. He's always researching, should I say, on football. So, I absolutely think going forward, he's only going to get better. He's only going to get smarter. He's going to become better at playing chess and football. So,
and once he realizes that don't get too cute, do the things that work, you can call a game and still score points without having this super innovative offense that blows everyone away and you're running 4 tight ends and you're running 4 fullbacks out, split out wide, and you're like, don't get too cute. You're going to be able to call points or call game to score points. I will also want to touch base on another topic of this game, the failed pick 6 at the end by Tremaine Brock. That could have iced it. Also, that and in overtime, these are in overtime, so let's touch on overtime. First of all, we got the ball. We drove down the field. We got it into the goal line. First and goal, came away with the field goal. Field goal was the right call, but I felt like we were going to win the game for the last half of the fourth quarter. And for us to get down there in the first drive and stall and settle with the field goal was kind of soul-crushing because they had it in the bag and they just couldn't punch it into the end zone.
Well, one thing on that was probably the most frustrating part about that ending is on first and goal, they tried to throw a fade to the corner, I believe, with Christian Kirk. And I get it, but I just wish they had kind of stuck to what they were doing right at the end of the fourth, where they were doing little outs in slants and getting people open and using picks just to get a little simple touchdown. And then the next play, I believe they tried to run it with Murray. Yeah. And then the next play, it ended up just...
If you're going to run a fade, the fade is going to Fitzgerald.
And that's the other part.
Period.
That's the one...
He is an elite fade runner. You know, he's the best guy at the team at going and high pointing the ball, jump ball, and he's got the best hands on the team. Yep. Like, that was
rookie.
Demoralizing.
That was a rookie coach mistake, in my opinion.
We kick it off to the Lions, and then they get a penalty on the kickoff, and they back themselves up further. And then it was third down with only a few seconds left in the game because we stoked up most of the drive, and boom. Or no, they drove down the field, they scored. And then we punted, and then we got the ball, and it was only a few seconds left in the game. And on third down, he throws this flutter ball up, and Tremaine Brock hits him right between the numbers in the chest. He drops it. He could have got out of bounds, and we could have kicked the game-winning field goal.
He might have been able to
return it for a touchdown potentially.
And be the hero.
Neither one happened. They, the next play, fourth down, Stafford basically runs around, wastes the clock, throws a Hail Mary, incomplete, tie game. Game over. I was like, oh, man, you're telling me after the entirety of the game, we had 3 different opportunities to come away with this ball game. If that's how it's going to be, I'll take that every single week. It wasn't pretty. It will get more pretty. It will get more appealing to watch. But, yeah. I'll take it, honestly.
It was definitely entertaining, those last 2 quarters, the fourth and the overtime. But I think it does provide a lot of optimism, and specifically for me, a little bit more security or insurance with how that defense looked and how they can cause multiple turnovers in one game, even not really having a secondary.
Yeah. So, and wait till we get Alford and Pat Pete back, and we get some of our other veterans
Suggs
back.
Suggs has not lost his motor.
Oh, dude. Suggs was the best player in the game.
And Chandler is looking just as good as ever. So, definitely a lot to look forward to.
Another guy looking good, looking vintage, I should say, is Fitzgerald, who caught 8 of 13 targets for 113 yards and a touchdown. now only trails Jerry Rice by 238 targets. You and I were talking before this, and there is a realistic chance that he could pass Jerry Rice in every single receiving category, mainly being receptions and yards.
Touchdowns will be tough, but I think receptions and yards, especially receptions, is very possible given Kyler Murray continues to do what he did even in 2 quarters.
Because we were breaking it down. He's at 8 catches this year. Let's say he averages 5 a game for the rest of the year. That is 15 more games at 5 catches a game. He's going to get 75 catches plus his 8 that he got last week. He's already well on his way to over 80 catches. All right. And he could be above that. I'm giving him only 5. There might be 2 other games where he catches 10 or 11 or 8 in a third,
Sure.
I'm only giving him 5 average a game, which is, I think, pretty fair. So if you put him at essentially 80 catches this year, around 80 catches next year, and around 80 catches a year after that, boom, there's your 240. There's your lead.
And there's a very realistic chance that he gets 100 receptions this year.
And
I'm not trying to come out too bold, but
80, and then he gets 60 if he plays 2 more years. Yep. And then boom, there's your 240. So
was going to cut past Tony Gonzalez for number 2 by the end of this month.
Yeah, he's going to be number 2 in every category, I believe, by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's, just pretty much straight across the board. And if he gets kind of reinvigorated and he thinks Kyler is the real deal, I could totally see him playing 2 more years. Like, I'm not going to put anything past him.
Yeah.
So he's going to play, that would be 20 or 18 NFL seasons or something like that, and he'll be 38. Like,
isn't that still 6 less years than Jerry Rice played? I believe he played till he was 44.
44, but I think he only played 20 NFL seasons.
He did.
So, like, NFL season-wise, I think it will be
that's
2
a good
less.
Point. And he did the last couple of years. He didn't really play.
He was just kind of paycheck stat chasing at that point. But I do think that he has a very realistic chance to pass Jerry Rice. It's all dependent upon this year and whether or not he feels good enough at the end of the year. Because that's the thing. Fitzgerald at this point, he gets to do what he wants. You don't want to practice? No worries, bro. Take the day off. All right. You don't want to get hit. You don't want to run. Cool. Because you're going to produce in the games because you're a professional. You're going to keep your body in tip-top shape for a couple more years. He's totally going to be able to produce, I think. Totally, I will admit, 1,000% homerism by me. But
has
my
he yet
all-time favorite player,
he
has never let me down. So
yeah, I was about to say, has he yet to prove you wrong? Has he yet to make amazing plays, even with, should I say, garbage QBs? But this isn't a Larry Fitzgerald podcast. So
no, we'll save our rant for when he catches 8 more next game, then he's already
You'll never hear the end of it. Then.
A good percentage of the way to what he needs to get,
Absolutely.
To have a very good 100-catch season. Let's break down next week's game. We have the Cardinals traveling across the country to Baltimore to play a 10 a.m. football game.
Gotta love
Ravens are favored by 13.5. Historically, the Cardinals have not traveled well to the East Coast to play early games. It is one of the things that has always plagued West Coast teams.
Especially the Cardinals.
And the Ravens are coming off a 59-point performance in Miami, right?
Yep.
Or was it? I might have been out. I'm not sure. But
it's
59 points on the road in Miami. They absolutely destroyed the Dolphins. Lamar Jackson threw 5 touchdowns, well on his way to my over-under of 15.5 touchdowns. I smashed the over on that. Everyone should have as well. It's NFL in 2019. He's going to have at least 20. And he is well on his way there. What are your thoughts on this game?
The thing is, I think after last week, the Cardinals are going to be like, oh, crap, we actually really need to start focusing on this passing game because it is a legitimate threat. But I think that's going to be the mistake in that the Ravens are going to go right back to what they're good at, and that's running the ball and playing defense. And I think that's what's ultimately going to kill us. Despite us not having our secondary, if we can't stop the run, there's no point in throwing the ball.
I would say that is the dumbest thing we could do.
You think so?
Because what I'm doing is I'm stacking 7-8 in the box again, and I'm saying pass. I know he just beat the Dolphins, but that's the Dolphins. The Dolphins don't have anybody in the secondary as good as Baker.
Yeah, but wouldn't putting 8 in the box be preparing for the run?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I said.
I'm saying, no, I thought you were just saying that.
I was saying don't focus on the pass because after seeing this past week,
that's what I'm saying. You said that you thought that they were going to focus on the pass, and I said that's dumb. They should not do that. You and I agree that they should focus on the run still, shut down the run, limit Lamar on the ground, and make him beat you with his arm, right?
Yeah, well, that was my worry, was that they were going to do that.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So we both think that they should,
stick to the ground game, do what you did last week,
focus on playing D on the
load
ground,
up the box, send your guys
and
in,
see if their guys can beat your guys.
Yep.
And don't be stupid like the Dolphins and start, taking all of your safeties out of the middle of the field where Marquise Brown is fast. All right, newsflash, he is very fast.
But I will say that's the thing is we were actually playing some experience. Well, TJ not necessarily, but Amendola and Kenny Golladay have experience. So we were playing experienced wide receivers. I think that's where maybe we can make up a little bit, and where we're lacking in DBs is that they do kind of have lower end wide receivers or young wide receivers. But the one thing you do need to worry about is obviously the deep ball and the speed.
Yeah.
So if you can contain that, I think they can guard him and keep him.
And he completed 45% of his passes, Lamar Jackson. In 7 starts last year, he completed only 45% of his passes. All right. In his 1 start this year, he completed, 85% of his passes? 17 for 20? Rating. He's not going 17 for 20 every week. It's not happening. So, he's going to not throw at this rate because no one can. You can't sustain 5 touchdowns every game. You can't sustain 17 of 20 every game. And teams have different personnel who match up differently against players, Maybe Byron Murphy can kind of run with Marquise Brown. Or, maybe Brock covers Willie Snead nicely. Or, the one guy I'm worried about, and I'm always worried about him, is the tight end, Mark Andrews. I do think that if they're going to win, it's going to be similarly to how Detroit was moving the ball before they decided to just run. Yeah, and it's send their guys long, send Marquise Brown and their guys further down the field, stretch it, make that middle of the field softer.
Open.
And then we don't really have linebackers that can necessarily cover guys like Mark Andrews, guys like TJ Hawkinson. We never have. Reddick was supposed to be that guy. It's still uncertain if he's going to be back for game 2 or if he's going to miss time or how much time he might miss. But I do think Mark Andrews can play a big factor. I do think the Cardinals probably lose this game. I'm trying to be, realistic with my expectations. But 13.5 points is way too many for me. I do think that they're going to keep it close.
Yeah, no, I think Baltimore is going to win, unfortunately. That's nothing against the Cardinals. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a more than 2 touchdown win. I think that's inflated from last week. I'd really like to see what happens this week, specifically with the defensive line. That's one glaring thing is Lamar did not really receive any pressure.
Yeah.
Hence, there was no rushing yards.
So when you got Suggs, who they know Suggs
and Chandler Jones
coming after them, and you got Chandler Jones on the other side who's going to be pressuring, making Lamar move his feet when he throws,
and
not
he's gonna have to
standing.
Throw the ball.
Because if you go back and watch that deep ball to Marquise Brown,
Lamar
sitting there. Does the play action, and he basically runs 7 or 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
And just starts hopping.
And sits. And just waits and waits and waits until his guy ends up outrunning the corner long enough, and then he chucks a super deep ball because guess what? The Dolphins left no safety in the middle of the field. They left no help over the top. They left, and Marquise Brown just took the top off. All right? And that's what happens when you don't do that and when you don't apply pressure.
Yep.
The Cardinals are a better football team than the Dolphins. They will not get blown out. I do not think that they will lose by, more than 14 points. In our Mill Mogul podcast, I did take the Ravens minus 13.5. But I'll put an asterisk because I am betting against the Cardinals every game of the year. So that way, if they do win this game, I'm going to be super happy. And if they lose by 14, at least I won the bet. And if they're close, guess what? I could still be happy because it's showing improvement against a team that could, realistically
make a run,
potentially win their division.
And make a run in the playoffs.
They might be the only team 2-0 to start the year in that division. All right? They're the only team 1-0. They're in the lead. They're probably going to be 2-0. So, Steelers are going to be playing from behind. Browns are going to be playing from behind. Bengals, all right? They're going to be a top 10 pick. I'm calling them dead already. But I do think that this will be a closer game than some people might think. Might end up at 10 points. I do think that if they can make them settle for a couple field goals early, that's the key.
Crucial.
Is
don't let them
weather the storm in the first quarter, and then as you get more awake and you're not, 7 a.m. West Coast time body clock. Once you get to the 8, 9 a.m. range, it's noon. It's middle of the second quarter. If you're down, like say 9-3, I think you're right in the game.
You're doable.
If you're down 10-3, you're right in the game.
Down 17-0, it's not looking good.
Yes, 17-0, then all right, then my Ravens bet's going to smash because
that game's not.
But also, I'm not going to put it past them because the resilience of Kyler Murray is potentially something that we should watch going from game to game and year to year, is because if you're going to have that kind of resolve and that kind of comeback mentality where you're never out of it, that's a special, unique thing that not that many quarterbacks have.
You can't teach that. That's just something you have.
Mark Schlereth even said, he was the color analyst for the Cardinal Lions game. He was even saying that when they were down and at that 98 win % probability, like we were talking about, he would have folded. He would have been mentally strong enough to say, I believe in myself, I believe in my teammates that we can make a comeback. But Kyler Murray never doubted, never stopped believing. It was always like, just give me a chance, give me a chance, give me a chance. And it just didn't happen week 1. Probably not going to happen week 2. It's going to be probably Kyler Murray's first NFL loss this upcoming week. And that's okay. There's a learning curve with everything. And I think his is going to be kind of steep this year. But in the long run, it's going to be beneficial as long as they don't get his head bashed in.
Yep. No, absolutely. You got to protect him. Like I said, on the defensive side, the two main things are sticking to your plan that you had this past week of loading the box, just trying to shut down Mark Ingram, who will run all over us if we don't, and then just putting pressure on Lamar and hoping that your DBs can make plays when he is getting pressured and starts making bad throws. On the offense, as best as we can, try to protect Murray. It was not a horrible performance by the offensive line, but it wasn't great by any means either.
No. And Murray will learn. There was a couple plays where he tried to get out and run and evade pressure. And in the NFL, those defensive ends are significantly faster than some of the defensive ends and linemen and linebackers that you played in college. You're not going to necessarily be able to get to the corner. But the great thing about Kyler is that when he does evade the pressure, I do think that he's always keeping his eyes down the field. He's always keeping his eyes to say, I'm still looking to make a play.
It's always in the play.
And even with his eyes down the field, that's going to freeze a linebacker an extra second. That's going to freeze a safety an extra second where he might be able to pick up a couple yards with his legs.
Absolutely.
But don't count on it being like 70, 80 yards a game. Anything like that. I would say somewhere around 30. He's going to get down. He's going to be smart. I think he's going to, 20 to 30 yards a game on the ground, a couple first downs, that type of deal. That's more what I want him to be because I still want him to show his arm. I still want him to, the best way for us to move the ball down the field is passing. Passing is the most efficient way to move the football down the field. And that's statistically proven time and time again. Running is an inefficient metric. When you're pounding the rock in between the tackles, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of football. Like passing it, opening up, even in quick passes like you were saying. Get it out quick to Keyshawn. Get it out quick to Kirk. Let them make a play. Let them make a play and run. And you start looking towards the next play. You start looking, what do I got to do next? What do I got to do to get, the next play be a success?
No, absolutely. The big thing for me with the offense, and I think it was the most glaring issue, was, and I hate to say it, it was Kyler Murray's height. And it was him getting blocked down. I believe he had 4 or 5 balls batted down. So the one thing I really am interested to see on how they adapt and kind of fight that adversity they're running into is how do you get him out into space to where he doesn't even have to worry about guys. Because what Larry was talking about is he started noticing the defensive linemen would just stop rushing. They wouldn't even rush in at Kyler Murray. They would just sit almost and wait.
And try to bat the ball
and then bat it down.
Yeah,
especially on the crucial plays.
The best way to do that is to roll him out a little bit more often. Similarly to how Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, similarly to how he used Dak. He wanted to maximize Dak's strengths. He wanted to roll Dak out, get Dak where he's comfortable, making a play, and you saw they blew the doors off the Giants. 4 touchdowns for Dak.
Yep.
I could see that kind of being more and more of Cliff's thing is like, if you're going to stop and not pressure and try to back these down, we're going to roll him out. We're going to get his speed out in space, and you're going to have to choose to come tackle a quick little shifty 4-3 type player or cover the wide receiver he's about to pass to for 20 yards. Like when you could get the defense to where they don't know kind of what you're doing in a sense where they can't just stop that rush and put their hands up, then that's when you're going to be successful.
If they're sitting, yeah, absolutely. You should be rolling out and making them pay for it. If the defensive line has, the audacity, I guess, should I say, to not rush at the QB, then make them pay for it, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm really interested to see how that kind of goes next game, see if it's going to be an apparent issue going forward or if it was just kind of some quick fix they needed to work around. I
do also think this will be a good test for Kyler Murray because this is a very good defense. We'll know a lot more about the potential of Kyler Murray in the NFL after this week. Lions, they have an okay defense. They're getting better, defenders. But the Ravens do have a deep, very good defense. If you can kind of move the ball on them, if you can kind of make them second guess, Harbaugh is one of the better coaches in the NFL still. This is going to be a good test for Arizona and Cliff and Kyler and seeing where everything's at. It's going to take time. Be patient. If you want to get off the train now. We don't want you. But you're always welcome back, of course, But, this thing is going to work. I do think it's going to work. And I'm all bought fully into Kyler Murray.
Absolutely. Especially after what he showed. And just the one thing I have to keep reminding myself, and Arizona Cardinals fans should remind themselves, is that he is a rookie. And I know it's annoying because we had a rookie last year, and we said the same thing. We have to give him time, and then we reset the button. But you have to understand he's a new rookie, and he's going to be a rookie for a period of time. So it's going to take time for us to get good and truly start winning games. And it's tough as it is to accept that after a couple bad years we've had. That's just the case, but that's all right.
Yeah, but it's also like you're getting a more dynamic rookie. You're getting a rookie who
for a better cause.
Yeah, should I say? He's a Heisman Trophy winner. Josh Rosen never sniffed the Heisman. He didn't even do well in the Pac-12, which, for most accounts of college football fans, you can say that's the weakest Power 5 division with pretty much confidence that no one will disagree with you, that you'll be right. So if Josh Rosen can't even do well against Pac-12, I don't know why he would do well against NFL competition. And Kyler Murray did well against NFL competition in Bama. It just took him a little bit of time to realize, hey, this is the fastest defense I've played against. This is the best team I've ever played against. It took him a full half to get used to it, but in the second half, he was good against Alabama, against NFL caliber defenders. A lot of those guys have or will go in the first round, in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. So I do think that, like we said, preaching patience, but I do think that in the long run, this is going to be a pretty good offense. I'm hoping that they could get to like 23 points per game this year. That's kind of my target. If they could be above 23 points per game with the weapons we have, I do think that is trending in the right direction because we don't really have that good of weapons. Wait till we get better weapons, all right? Wait till, as much as I like Fitz and I like Kirk and I like, some of the guys they have, they still have to develop. They still have to improve.
Yeah, I was going to say, they can be weapons. It's just going to take time. And that's the one thing I know Cardinals fans don't want to hear, but it's going to take time because the fact of the matter is the reset button was hit, in a sense, with a lot of this team, and it's new. It's going to take time.
So. Yeah, if you wanted to skip to the end of the show, we'll just recap it right here for you. D-backs dead September 12th, 2020. Here we come. ASU, they're going to cover the 14 points, in my opinion. I do think that they're going to keep it close.
Agreed.
And Cardinals, I think, are honestly going to cover the 13.5 points as well.
Agreed.
If you want to, I might be interested in parlaying both of those for a good amount of money personally and just, letting it ride or die with an all AZ weekend. If we all do bad and those lose, then I might want to kill myself. If not, then I will want to throw a party in their honor. So, but that's going to be all for today's show. Well, I don't know exactly the rate that we'll get these out or whatnot, but as soon as the Suns get going, as soon as the Coyotes get going, I'm excited to talk about some of the Coyotes. I do want to do a separate, smaller podcast on that, so we'll probably get that planned, get that sent out, because they are pretty good in NHL 20 if you haven't checked.
They're looking good going into this year.
So, and then, the Suns are probably going to be the Suns again next year because the NBA is so damn tough, but Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, truthers right here.
It's looking the best it has in years.
Valley Boys, hashtag Valley Boys.
Valley Boys.
All right. But no, this is going to be it. We're going to talk Cardinals next week probably. It's all AZ Sports. Mill Sports, it's all about AZ Sports. We're going to talk other stuff, but, really excited to talk Arizona sports with everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you, guys.